Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joined. Welcome to the Inside Track. I'm super excited about today's episode. I have a good friend and an amazing mixer, Alexann, with us today, as well as special guest Jeremy, who's going to be coming on a little bit later as well. Alex, do you want to come on camera? There you go. Hey, Alex, how you
Hi,
doing?
good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm super excited about today. As you know, we've been so excited to do this for a very long time. Um, and I can't wait to deep dive and jump into your process and how you work. But first of all, guys, I just want to say if you have any questions for Alex, and we're going to be showing you some stuff on Pro Tools as well a little bit later on. Any questions, please drop them into the Q&A, or if you're watching on socials, please drop them in on socials as well. We have amazing Avid staff around the world who will be monitoring social channels as well. So Alex, let's dive in. We've been waiting to do this for a very long time, so I'm super
Yeah.
excited. Today I want to dive into kind of more of your story, and obviously one thing that was great was that you study and you are also an engineer, and I want to kind of deep dive into that and how that happened. First of all, can we get a little bit of an intro from yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually in my last semester, Berkeley Online, majoring in music composition for film, TV, and games. However, I love mixing and I decided to go into mixing. So I took a mixing class maybe a couple years ago, and I didn't maybe 2 to 3 years ago. I didn't really know what mixing was before then. I mean, I knew what it was, but I just didn't understand like the art of it, and I loved it so much. I never stopped mixing since that class. I've taken mix workshops. I love watching mix videos. I just love mixing.
Nice. I think that's
Yeah.
that's amazing. I think that's what stood out when we first spoke as well, when you told me that you were studying and also doing mixing. I think it's great. And mixing is one of those things, it's like you can fall in love with it. Like plug-in choices, hardware, it becomes such a hobby, I guess, but also a passion, right? And the language as well, as I like to say, like a really cool language that you get to speak with people, and tools like Pro Tools and interface and stuff, they all become part of the language that you could use in any country, any studio kind of thing. So it's really amazing. So we are definitely going to deep dive today into yourself and Jeremy's sessions, because once again, they were remarkable when you first told me about how you guys worked remotely and through the pandemic, which I think I'd love to share. First of all, I want to know about exactly, so audio engineering, there's a lot that audio engineering kind of under its umbrella, right? There's like tracking, there's mixing, there's mastering, there's so many different things, being an assistant. So for you as a mixer, I'd say, or engineer, what do you say that you started off kind of when you said you fell in love with it? What did you kind of start off with? Was it straight in the mixing side? Was it
Yeah,
tracking?
so
Was it
straight into mixing.
okay? Wow. And
Yeah,
yeah, and then was that kind of like more, like vocals on a 2-track thing, or was it just straight stems and you're just trying to
straight
mix?
stems, multi-track. Yeah, so every week we would have an assignment to submit, and it would just be a mix. We would get the files in, mix it,
Wow.
submit it. We would give our classmates feedback and get feedback from the teacher, and I just became so fascinated with, I don't know, the process of mixing, and I just like, I don't know, I just love the feeling of like getting lost in a mix. It's like you
Yeah.
enter like your own little world kind of.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And then how do you, as someone who loves mixing, this is quite a difficult question, but how do you know when a mix is done or finished?
That's a tough
uh,
one.
it is, and
That is
I
a
love
really tough one.
I love hearing people's answers because it always varies. Some will
Yeah,
say, it's done when it's done, but I'd love to know how you think something would be done. I mean, you could go off what has already been released,
right.
kind of with Jeremy and stuff, but how do you know that was done? Would you kind of rely more on the artist, or would it be more kind of you think it's done?
I think it's a mutual thing. I kind of just like know when I'm getting close to the end of the mix, but the artist absolutely has the final say, and I rely on the artist to, approve the final mix and just let, I'm so nervous right now. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No worries. No worries. Pretend it's just me and you talking now. So it's all
okay.
Good. So that makes sense. I think it's more of a mutual thing for sure. I think it's more like, as long as the artist agrees with it, you agree with it, and then everyone kind of who's associated with that specific song agrees that it's finished. I guess that's finished. I mean, I've heard
you get to I feel like I get to a point where you've balanced everything,
mm-hmm.
panned it, you've done all, you've taken it to the next level, and it's kind of like it just feels done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. And then, so when you and Jeremy, or when you and the artist work, right? So did you ever have like anyone that you was tracking, or was it always just mixing and never really much of the recording process?
I never really tracked. I just went straight into mixing, which is pretty interesting. But it's really how I learned. I learned mixing all in the box, basically
Nice.
from my room.
Wow.
Yeah. I took a master class with this amazing teacher, my mentor, Rachel Alina, and part of that class was treating our room.
Wow.
She would bring in an acoustician, and we would take like room measurements, and yeah, it was such an amazing process. So I really learned how to like create a good listening environment where I mix all the time.
And I think that's a very important thing that you picked up on, because a lot of people who are starting out in music, they always have the early questions about where should they start, because they're just in a room. Like, I'm actually just in a room today, not in the studio, but like, where do you start with this, right? And I think it's so important that your listening environment is very important, right? Would you say kind of like, obviously your monitor selection is still going to be important, but would you say the acoustics were way more important than actually your monitors or any other gear, right? I guess, yeah, no, it's true. Like, a nice room that sounds great is like so vital, especially if you're going to be in there like 25/8, right? You're going to be in there so much that you want to adapt to that room and make sure that you can be able to mix, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, everyone wants to buy really awesome fancy speakers, but I learned that it's much better to invest in room treatment and acoustics, or else, I mean, what are you going to hear coming out of these speakers? You need to treat the room first, which it's been so important to do. And such a difference. I remember like just the process of starting to bring things in, like acoustic panels, and just like it's such a difference. I mean, I could hear everything clearly. And
did you attempt to mix without the acoustic treatment beforehand, and then obviously you saw the massive difference?
I did.
Now you're like, wow.
And now it's kind of something that you hear, like, oh, you need to treat your room, or you need to be in a good listening environment, and it's just I'm thinking, okay, and then you do it, and then you understand why it's just so important.
So then I just wanted to ask about kind of because I know that you mix in the box, right?
Yes.
Is there kind of any other equipment that you kind of rely on, or that you kind of really like, you can't live without, kind of thing, right? What would be your kind of top gear in the studio? Because your studio looks great from where we're seeing it. The colors, for me, it's important, right? Colors, I just feel like you need some lights and amazing colors. You need the vibe. So
right, you gotta get the
get the vibe going.
Light strips going on.
Exactly. But what is the kind of like, what other gear do you use? Because is it like, do you say your interface is like your most?
My Apollo Twin. It's my most prized possession.
Right.
Yeah, it's my main piece of gear right now. I love it. I have my main monitors are Yamaha HS8s.
Okay.
And I have a pair of Dolly speakers powered through a Pioneer SX, I think 750, which is a great reference too. They just have really nice clarity. And then some Aventone mix cubes.
Nice. Which
And
I was talking about
1,000
earlier.
pair of headphones,
Okay.
earbuds,
And
everything.
yeah. And what's your favorite pair of headphones?
My ATH M50s, the Audio Technica.
Nice.
Yeah, they sound great. They're super comfortable. Also, the earbuds.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, I just find it so important to check on those too, because that's what
yeah.
everybody's listening to.
I mean, I was speaking to, actually, it's funny because I actually did a webinar this morning, but for the UK. And we were talking about obviously referencing and how important it is, right? But like I was saying, I was in a session about 3-4 months ago, and I was kind of watching this engineer do his thing, and he had audio movers running on his phone, but he was going into the kitchen, and I was thinking, what is this guy doing? Because he's mixing, and then he just runs away with his phone, and I'm like, hey, you just like,
I do the same thing, same exact thing. I'll text myself, I have my Sonos speakers in the living room and like another Bluetooth speaker, so I can quickly, sometimes I'll just like loop the mix so it keeps playing. I can go out to the car, just check it in different places. And my house is pretty small, so I can in 2 seconds be in the living room, come back in here, just make sure it's translating well to different sets of speakers, headphones, and the car.
And I mean, I think that's what was great about the songs that I had heard of yours, was that they just sounded perfect on everything that I played it on.
Thank you.
And that's why I was like, they sounded really, your mixes are clear, very clear. And I can't wait to deep dive into the session in a little while. But so how important is kind of like, referencing when you're mixing? Because obviously, I mean, everyone says it's very important, but I mean, I'd love to hear it from you and see what you think as well. Do you have
absolutely
to yeah.
I mean, I don't have to, but I would always prefer to. I can't see a reason why I wouldn't. I'm always bringing tracks into my Pro Tools session, so I could reference within the session quickly back and forth, just to make sure I'm, I want the songs that I'm mixing to stand up to what's being released. And it's very helpful to get some reference tracks from the artist if they have some, but if not, I'll just choose some that I think are a good, starting off point.
No, I think that's spot on.
Good for keeping perspective too.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, right? And even like monitor selection and having various different speakers, like you've got the Avantones, you've got kind of you've got your main speakers and stuff as well. Just having them around so you can switch between, I guess, is so important for you as well. So again, you can translate well on different things, as well as obviously the mobile phone.
Listening on the iPhone speaker too.
Exactly, because everyone uses that these days. So which is awesome. So I think that's great. I love talking about your process. It's amazing, and everything you use. I think it's time for us to maybe bring on Jeremy, and then we can have a chat about Jeremy. So guys, I'd like to welcome you to our special guest, Jeremy Costa, all the way from Australia. Jeremy, did you want to come on the camera? There you go. Hey, Jeremy. First of all, thank you so much for joining us, man. Honestly, it's really early for you, or late, as you said.
Well, the sun's coming up behind me, so it's very early. Yeah, I'm in Sydney, Australia. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
It's awesome, man. I mean, I'm so excited to kind of deep dive into your guys' process together as well. So Jeremy is an amazing artist, singer, songwriter, who's been working with Alexann for around, do you say about a year or two?
I'd say about a year and a half. A year and a half.
Yeah. And you guys have created an amazing bond through music, and I just can't wait to share the vision that you guys initially had. So do you want to maybe give an introduction to yourself, Jeremy, and how you met Alex and stuff as well?
Yeah, I met Alex through a mutual friend, her mentor, Rachel Alena. She's an amazing mix engineer that I met years ago. And we've actually, she and I also worked together as well. And she was putting together, well, she had put together this mixed class, and she asked me to just, deliver some of my songs to the students, just so they have an opportunity to mix some songs and get some, real world experience, with the idea that any selected track, if it sounded great, then I could actually release it. It was a great opportunity to work with, new mix engineers, new up and coming artists within in their own right. And it gave me a really good little window into seeing, how different perspectives can change your song instantly. And I've been very fortunate myself, because I've worked with some of the absolute best engineers on the planet, and there's a real high bar for any sort of engineer that I work with. I mean, it's actually exceptional. Like the last engineer that I worked with, I mean, probably one of the best engineers on the planet is a man named Henry Hirsch. Mm-hmm. And he was Lenny Kravitz's engineer for the majority of Lenny's career. And I started working with him, and we recorded a whole heap of music together. And then obviously the pandemic happened and all these sorts of things. And whereas Henry was all about analog, he loved richness in actual tape and recording in that aspect. I wanted to be able to find someone that could, essentially get close to that, but at the same time, someone that could actually create an amazing sound themselves out of a new way of recording for myself, which is essentially going into the box and tracking things a very specific way. And Rachel introduced me to Alexann here, and she was just absolute raw talent. I'm not trying to, talk anyone up here. She's actually just exceptional. I can deliver a song to her and I can give her a reference, or I cannot, or we can use some of my other tracks that have been mastered. And, we can reference that. And it has hands down been the most effortless mixing with someone that I've ever done. And we have a system in place that allows me to deliver her a song and for it to get completed, really fast and to a really high standard. So it's a new world that we live in, at least for the moment, and this works really well for us.
I mean, considering you guys are like so far away as well, and to get
so crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say
how we're able to collaborate and with the distance. Yeah, it's amazing, the technology that allows us to do this, and it's as if like we're so. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, that's fine. I was gonna actually ask like how you guys actually sent the first song over. I mean, like, was it you just sent the stems over, then kind of Jeremy would have wrote like notes on kind of what you wanted, or was you like on a Zoom session doing a mix?
Yeah. So at first, Jeremy would send over just a file of stems. I think wet and dry.
The very first session.
Yeah.
The very first session was just straight up stems.
Yeah, which, that was cool. But eventually he just started sending me his Pro Tools sessions. And honestly, it's so easy, because I literally get to pick up where he left off.
Right.
And if Jeremy needs to edit something, I'll just send him over the session. He'll make his edit, send it back, which rarely happens, but it's been a good.
It's the ideal situation for a mixer, I think, when they can be given your actual session. A lot of the time people, like an artist, will just deliver their stems and then a reference file, and then the engineer, the mixer that you're working with, has to then take these raw stems And then first things first, they need to get to your reference. So they have all that work that frankly you've already done to get it to that place. So they can then go, okay, I'm at Jeremy's jumping off point now. And I've already spent like, maybe a couple of hours getting to this point, which it's sort of a little bit of wasted time. So we sort of just came up, I sort of suggested, how about I just send you my session? There's a lot of trust that you have to have with your engineer to essentially do that. Yeah. And we have that. So I just got to a point where I just upload everything to a Google Drive. She'd download the entire session and she would jump onto the point where I jumped off. And she doesn't have to sit there, just trying to get it to that point, which cuts the time, just cuts a little bit of time out. And then
I could focus on just like, I could really spend the time focusing on the mix, taking.
So important.
Yeah, what Jeremy's done and just bringing it to the next level. And, working with stems or whatever, multi-tracks, that's great too. It's just sometimes I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. It's really nice to be able to pick off where they left off. If everyone's comfortable doing that.
I think it's such a strong point that you guys made, because it's true. Like if you're trying to get a dry mix all the way up to the reference point, you've basically just done exactly what's being done already. So
and then your perspective is, I could keep my perspective fresh and just really focus on the mixing.
I agree, because then you could give your talent on top of what's already been done, right? And be creative and actually just uplift what's already been there. Because I guess essentially, like as the engineer, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to just get the record ready, like radio ready, right?
Absolutely. I'm a mixer. I'm not like a producer mixer.
Right. Yeah. That's so strong.
Yeah. So
which is what I want. And I think that's a really big point that a lot of mixers and engineers, and masters, artists and producers, there is a definite, you want specific people for specific tasks. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted a mixer. I wanted someone that I could deliver my song to and they would mix it. I didn't want a jack of all trades. There are many out there that are masters at every single different aspect of the craft, and my hat goes out to them. But my experience has been that if you get one person for that one specific job and that they're amazing at it, it's always going to be a stronger collaboration. And that's exactly what it is when an artist works with a mixer, and then that mixer will generally work with the masterer and so on. It's a collaboration between a group of people, and no one creates. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any one person create something that's amazing and it just be them. There's always a team involved to some degree. And that's what Alexann and I have, and and with Rachel and Alina as well. And everyone who works on the project adds something huge to it. And that's why Alexann and I work so well together, because I essentially produce a song and I send it to her, and she turns it from what is a constructed piece. She hears my intention, we speak about it, and then she takes it to that next level. She makes it something that can be released. And mostly because I don't want to, that's really what it comes down to. I don't want to have to mix a full song and master it. I want to be working on the next song. I want to hand it off to someone that is going to go, okay, cool, I see what you're saying. I need to fix certain things, or I need to, reinforce certain ideas that are here, and then get it out. That's the biggest issue that any artist will have, and that's why you want to have the right people involved.
I think that's so important. I mean, again, I was saying this morning, actually, it's like, for me, I use this word so much, but it's like an engine. Like, it is so cool. Even in person, I've seen like sessions where the producer's making the beat in his headphones, but the artist and the engineer already recorded the next track, and then they're finishing that off, and then this beat is going back over there, and it's just like a loop, and they're just getting songs done. So as
Exactly.
an
And that's
artist,
actually how we work, ironically.
yeah, I think that's amazing, because then you can focus on the next thing while Alex is already working and finishing off the product, and getting it ready. How as an artist, because I'm pretty sure there's a few artists out there, but how as an artist do you find, I mean, I know social media is probably the easiest answer, but how do you find and trust an engineer? Like, how did you guys find that? Was it like, oh, let me just try this out? But because you knew Rachel, I guess that was an easy point, as well as having that middle ground, right?
Almost every situation is a trial and error.
Yeah.
That's really it. You can only trust your own ears as a mixer or a musician or as an artist. You have an idea in your head, and most of the time you're expecting whoever you work with to read your mind. That's literally it. You say, this is the song that I'm delivering to you, and I want it to sound like this, but I also want it to sound like chocolate pancakes. And you know what I mean? You just say crazy stuff, and you expect the other person to understand. But it is trial and error. And I was very fortunate with Rachel introducing us, and also doing it in a situation where there was a lot of students actually working on one song. To have 20 to 30 people deliver a different mix for this one song, it's incredibly overwhelming. But at the same time, it's an amazing opportunity to just go, wow, that's the one. Like, this person right here just gets me. Like, I don't even know who this person is, and they have just completely, they're just doing exactly what I want. So I actually think that that's a good way for a lot of mix engineers to meet new clientele, jump into mix classes and things like that, because it's just a great way to demo your skills, all the while learning more. That's what worked for us. And now Alexann and I have completed about 25 songs within a year and a half. And the way we do it is she's always, I think you're always working on about 2 songs at the same time, Alexann. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like 2 or 3.
While she's on those, I'm getting the next one or 2 ready, and she gets to sort of shift between them, keep her perspective fresh, and she's like constantly working on them. It's a phenomenal situation to be in.
That's so cool. I mean, when you guys do a live show eventually and get to meet, please make sure you invite me there as well, because I can't wait to hear all these songs. Wherever it's going to be. All right, guys. So that's awesome. I'm so glad you guys got to share that, because it's so important, especially after what everyone's gone through. And as we were saying before, it's just like, it's not giving up. It's finding how you can work around your situations, right? And I think this is a perfect story as to how you can still work remotely, and there's still tools out there that will be able to help you to get mixes done and get music going. Just like the engine, where I said it's kind of, you're next to each other. This is a similar thing, but it's virtual, which is a world we're kind of living in now. So awesome. So guys, should we share something and actually go through the session together? I believe we have an unreleased song by Jeremy, which is, what's the name of this song? Sorry, guys.
So this song is More Than Enough.
More Than Enough.
And it's just a really great, fun rock song. Mm-hmm. Great drums, energetic guitars, well-played bass, lots of vocal harmonies. So nice. I'm happy to just, do you want me to play through it and then talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, so Alex, you mixed this, and Jeremy, obviously you sang and produced it as well, or was it kind of a bit of both?
So that's basically the way I record is I compose the song, and what I make, it's a very important decision that I want drums and bass to always sound perfect. If your drums and your bass don't sound good, you are going to have problems later on in the mix. Your mix engineer is going to have to work 10 times as hard to get the good sound. So what I do is I actually go to a studio and I record my drums. I think it's a really good habit. Studios, if an artist has about 4 or 5 songs, I highly recommend just go to a studio, just get a work with an engineer just over the course of a couple of hours or a day, and get just a drummer, hire a session drummer, or maybe you might know a great drummer, and go into the studio and just record drums. Sit there on your guitar and a microphone, do a scratch tape, so the drummer has something to play to, and then I then get the drum sessions, and I come back and I start to overdub. I start to overlay my track. I build it. I could do a lot of it at home. The only things I would do in a studio is like a piano, if I'm going to use a grand piano. Drums, I will always do there, and horns. So drums, horns, and piano, I will leave for the studio. Virtually everything else can be done at home if you have the right gear. And when I say the right gear, very minimal stuff. All you need is one good mic. They're not expensive. I recommend getting a mic shield. You can see them on Amazon. You can see them everywhere. They're probably $100. You can find them between $30 to $130. Just so you can really shield any ambient sound from getting into the mic. I actually have one right here that I use.
Amazing.
And it's a perfect way for an artist to record their vocals at home. And I started using that when I started working with Alexann to minimize as much, essentially, ambient sound. So that's what I do. I'll then finish the entire song myself, track it completely, get it as tight as possible, as clean as possible, and then I'll deliver it to Alexann. So she'll get this session. As you see, it is what I delivered. So she, it just in terms of the tracks. So she gets drums, bass, guitars, organ, and all the vocals. And then her job is to craft it into a releasable sound, essentially.
That's so cool. I mean, I love the idea of having the reflection filter around the mic. I think it's so important because it's a cheaper way of kind of getting a great sound. And also, whose idea was to add the emojis in? Because I've never thought to do that. That's so cool.
That would be me.
I love that. I'm definitely.
Why not, right?
I haven't figured out that skill yet.
I love that. No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
should we have a listen?
Yeah, sure. And I just wanted to add one more thing. It's incredible what Jeremy crafts together with. I mean, he has a minimal setup. He has everything he needs, but I think because he spent so much time like in the studio, he just knows how to get that great sound. It's just, it's amazing.
I come from the school of that the mix is in the tracking. So if you track it well enough, then you actually have less to mix later on down the track.
True.
Now, when you combine that concept with a mixer like Alexann, who can mix anything, the music becomes even better than you could have possibly dreamed. And that's the most enjoyable part about collaborating with someone, is seeing it develop in a new way that was unexpected, but is completely, you're just completely glad for it to go that way. So that's how I approach things, and I think that just makes our relationship and our collaboration even stronger when the songs, are at this stage.
I think that's such a strong point. It's like kind of what goes in is kind of, it has to be strong and it has to sound great, right? But again, you could have a simple setup, right? You don't have to have some crazy stuff. You can definitely have a simple setup. These days, you need a laptop, Pro Tools, an interface, and a mic, reflection filter.
I have nothing. Headphones. I literally have nothing going on here. I have a simple interface with a preamp. Wow. That's it. And then I run my mic and my bass through the pre. The reason I work like this is just because of my experience with Henry Hirsch, with the way he would record. He, as I mentioned, he's an absolute genius, or definitely one of the most underrated engineers on the planet. Yeah. And he would explain to me that what goes in is the most important thing. If the performance isn't good, then the recording is not going to be good.
Mhm.
And we were sitting there just working on tape, analog gear, you know,
Wow.
and we created some of the greatest sounds I'll ever record. But I learned the valuable lesson that you don't need to have all the gear on the planet. As a matter of fact, all you need is one good preamp and a good mic, and then good habits. Make certain you can record with as much control as possible. And I'm never going to have that control with drums in a house or anything like that. So I go to a studio and I make certain that that's sorted out. Vocals I can control here. Guitars I can control. Everything else I can control. And that's really what it comes down to. And I think it's just good habits. If you have good habits, then the recording process is easy, which makes it an ideal situation for the person who's mixing your song.
Yeah, I think you said some gems in there. That's so good.
Good, thank God.
Love it. Well, should we have a little play, Alex, and
Sure.
and go to the track?
Yeah, I'll
Awesome.
play it through.
Lying next to you, you really got me going with all these good times. Oh baby, give me some more. I keep losing sleep. I'm always thinking about love. You're like a drug to me. Oh baby, give me some more. 'Cause if you give me nothing but your loving, I'd have more than enough, and I know I'll be running for your loving, 'cause you're all that I want. Losing you, it never enters a thought. There ain't no bad times, there's only a love. You're like the summertime, you're always keeping me warm. I owe a debt to you, 'cause you gave me your heart. Oh, 'cause if you give me nothing but your loving, I have more than enough, and I know I'll be running for your loving, 'cause you're all that I want, all my love. Give me nothing but your loving, I have more than enough, and I know I'll be running for your loving, 'cause you're all that I want. I'll be giving you my love. You're gonna know louder than the sun will blow. Round and round and high and low, we're gonna go. Light it up and let it blow. Cause if you give me nothing but your loving, I have more than enough, and I know I'll be running for your loving, 'cause you're all that I want, all my love. Give me nothing but your loving, I have more than enough, and I know I'll be running for your loving, 'cause you're all that I want.
Wow. That sounds so polished. The drums are just so nice. The drums are amazing. Well, good work, guys. That sounded great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got tons of questions coming in. So, I mean, first of all, I want to ask about kind of your layout, Alex, right?
Sure.
So how have you kind of, if you can just talk through maybe your buses, folders, and just how you laid this out. And again, the emojis look so cool. So I'm going to leave that one out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, keep it fun.
There you go.
But honestly, it actually has a little bit of a function other than being fun.
Okay.
It's just like I can quickly see like, okay, there's a guitar. You know, it's just like another visual clue for me. I don't know. It's like highlighting something.
It's a great tip. Efficiency is so key, and the little things, that little extra second you get back, it adds a little bit more time, right? So if you just see it's a guitar, it's a guitar.
Yeah. So I just closed all my folder tracks, which I love the folder tracks addition to Pro Tools. It's just so great to be able to like close everything up, and then I can open it up, and I don't know, it just really helps. Like it helps stay organized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have my beat bus, which is, I'll open it. I have drums routed there. All the drums go to a drum bus, which then go to the beat bus.
Wow.
And then I have my bass bus. The bass goes to the bass bus, which also goes to the beat bus. And I do that because sometimes, I'm not doing it here, but sometimes I like to process the drums and bass together via their bus, whether it be a little compression or whatever. If you want like a little extra glue there, it's just nice to be able to quickly, like, I just want to hear the beat, the drums and the bass.
Mm-hmm.
And everything gets routed to the 2 bus, which is my stereo bus, which is then routed to the 2 mix, which is a stereo audio track that I could print the mix to. And the reason I do that, another wonderful thing I picked up from my amazing mentor, teacher, Rachel, is you could just quickly go through your playlists of like, okay, what did I do 5 passes ago or 2 passes ago, and it's all there. And I could also bring in reference tracks. And so all the processing, all the stereo bus processing goes here. So my master fader, I just have a WLM meter.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't use the EQ, but I sometimes use it for like a visual meter.
Oh, nice.
So back to the drums and bass. So
it's great to see that you're using it's great to see that you're using the folders as kind of essentially a bus.
Absolutely.
Again, it's so cool that folders are in there, so you can actually do that, right?
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a big session can get very overwhelming.
Very overwhelming. Yeah.
With Jeremy's tracks, it's he's really good about just giving me, there's not hundreds of tracks, which is fine, but it just, sometimes simplifying helps me stay on track. And also, I could literally just press solo. I can hear the, drums and bass. It's so great. I'm so happy about the folder tracks.
I know, yeah. It's just an easier workflow, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I see that the drums look really interesting and sounded fantastic. And I wanted to just maybe ask you if you could maybe show us kind of what you did with the drums and what was on there initially, because I know, Jeremy, you said you would have recorded them externally, right, in another studio. So
so the drums would have, or what I try to do when I deliver drums is, again, have them recorded well and isolated the way that I want. So I try to give them with a certain amount of dryness to them. Yeah. And I find that actually works a lot better when we're all working in the box. If I try to give drums that have too much of a room sound, then we lose some options off the table. And obviously Pro Tools has some pretty incredible plugins that can allow you to replicate certain sounds. It's not always the case. Sometimes I just want drums to have a certain sound to them. But these ones are a little bit of a mix between live and dry, mostly because I wanted Alexann to have control and to be able to craft the drum sound that we wanted. the main goal was to just supply her drums that have enough headroom that she can then hear the coloration of the drums, and then bring it out. You know, if you record drums too loud, you make it really tough for the mix engineer, because there's only so much boosting they could do to the drums. There's only so much girth they can give, only so much fatness they could enhance in it. So that's my job there. I will deliver her drums that just have the sound that I want, but with headroom. Then Alexann takes it from there.
And I could even play you just a few seconds of the drums without any processing, so you could hear, you know, how they sound tracked, and then I'll enable the plugins.
Yes, please.
Would that be good?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I'd love
sure.
to hear that
Okay.
out. It sounds so clean. So clean already.
Yeah, they sound great.
Yeah.
And then we put processing on, and it just makes them come alive a little bit more. So this is with all the processing on. And you'll see at the end.
Yeah, it sounds full.
Yeah. I love drums. I love mixing drums, and especially live recorded drums. I think it's my favorite thing to mix. It's just that there's nothing like real drums.
Yeah, it sounds great. Sounds really, really good. And so on the vocals, maybe we can talk about the vocal changes a little bit as well.
Sure.
The vocals sounded great, and I know you have a specific reverb which you like to use.
I do.
I didn't tell you to say this, but the reverb is
my favorite reverb. You can ask anyone who knows me. Is Deverb, and I have every single reverb plugin ever made. Not every single, but I love how Deverb sounds.
Yeah,
I think it just sounds great, and it just sounds great on Jeremy's stuff. It just sounds really good.
Yeah,
it's simple.
It works. I think that's the best thing, right?
There's no coloration to it.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing that I discovered with Deverb, working with Alexann, is there's just no coloration. It's very, very simple, but so's some of the best gear on the planet. They have a specific job to do, and they do it. And Deverb's actually really fantastic. But most of the time when I use it, it's just to quickly get the sound, and I throw it on there just to quickly get the ambient sound that I want. And then Alexann goes ahead and goes, well, you've gotten the sound. That's exactly what we want.
I'll try to take it off the track and, send it to a reverb bus, because why not, But in the end, it usually sounds better as Jeremy put the reverb on at 10-11%, and multiple instances of deverb too. Wow. And it's like a conscious decision to do this, because it sounds better. I just think it sounds better in this situation. So, I know
we tend to use plugins a little bit like they're an effect in almost like a guitar setup, like when you have your guitar pedals. Alexann always has a very specific way to do something, and sometimes she'll mention to me, she'll be like, this is cool, I could just make like a reverb bus though. And then she'll listen to maybe when I was just quickly throwing the track down, and I've thrown reverb on all these vocals or all these guitars at the same time, and the way they hit the bus just works differently as opposed to if it was just reverb on the bus on its own. And these are things that she's figured out over time that have definitely crafted specific sounds to what we do.
Yeah.
I think it's just so amazing to see a partnership between an artist and an engineer. I'm still amazed by it, because it's a true partnership rather than kind of just send something, get it done. You guys are creating sound, and that is so special. So Alex, is this your vocal chain, I'm guessing?
So this is the vocal chain that I have on the lead. On the lead verse. just on the lead verse audio
Oh
track.
yeah.
And
Okay.
you want me to quickly just kind of go
Yeah,
through
if
it
we
a
could have
little
a
bit?
yeah, please do. Yeah.
Or do you want to ask me questions about it?
I'd love to have a listen, maybe solo of the vocal. Can we have a
Sure.
listen solo of the vocal?
Yeah. Solo.
Lying next to you, you really got me going with all these good times. Oh, baby, give me some more. I keep losing sleep. I'm always thinking about love. You're like a drug to me. Oh, baby, give me some more.
So that's a little
Sounds awesome.
sample. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love the JJP stuff as well. You know, that little kind of magic fader is
Yeah.
pretty cool as well. And obviously the air stuff is just, I mean, the vintage filter there is just amazing.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, so would this lead vocal then be going into another bus, right?
Yeah. So this so we have the verse
Yeah.
on its own track. It goes to the L vocals.
Okay.
And then I have all of the vocals going to this vocal master bus, if you want to call it that. Harmonies, backgrounds. It just makes it easier in the end if, you know, I don't know, Jeremy will be like, oh, maybe just like all the vocals need to come down a little bit. It's just easy to bring them all down that way. It's a good way for me to have some more control over it. And I'm not processing. I don't have any processing on this vocal master bus right now, but sometimes I will. It really just depends on the mix.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much for showing that, Alex. We've got tons of questions, and I just realized the time, which is great.
Cool.
We've been sharing a lot of stuff, which is awesome. So I'm going to go through the questions. I'm going to pick out some of them, and then we could just go from there. So I think you answered this one from Maria. It was, which sound or speakers do you use as the final decision, or is it a bunch of sizes and with or without headphones? Like, do you go outside and check it in the car too? Great question.
I check it on all of my speakers and in the car and on headphones and on my iPhone. I check it as many places as I can.
Yeah. I think that's the best thing, right? Is the more the better, because these days
am I answering that correctly?
I think, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
What is your final decision? Like, would you say your main studio monitors would be your final, or your headphones, or your kind of?
Really, it's it's all of them at the end, at like the final stage, because for me, it needs to sound good on everything. You know, I want the mix to translate well, whether someone's listening on their iPhone speaker, headphones, earbuds, their car. So I mean, I guess I use my Yamaha HS8s as my main speakers throughout the mix most of the time, but I'm often switching back and forth between my 3 sets and headphones.
Which definitely makes sense, right? Because like I was saying, it's just like everyone has these days everything. So you want to make sure it works and sounds great on everything. I remember hearing it wasn't even hearing, actually. I was there, and one of my friends had a really old kind of like, old cassette kind of things, but it had an aux cable in there, and he kept plugging it in, plugging it out. And I was like, what are you doing, man? He's like, look, man, some people still have these in their houses. I was like, you're right. I think we have one in our house, so I'm going to take it. So it's true. There's no kind of right answer to that, right? It could be anything, which is awesome. So another question from William is, what method do you use for replacing or adding drum samples such as a snare?
I usually don't replace drum samples on Jeremy's mixes. The drums come in sounding great. Occasionally I'll use trigger.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But also what I'll do is Jeremy will record like a few crash hits at the end and some snares. So I'll have some samples from within that recording in case I need to go in and replace it.
Which is a great habit if you're tracking some drums at the end of that session, or at least before the mics get changed position. I always recommend any artist to get the drummer just to give, a snare sound, a couple of different snare sounds that probably would have been performed over the song, crashes, kicks, just things like that, just to give the mixer a couple of options if they're needed, because you don't necessarily know what that mix is going to sound like until you're working on it. And you don't necessarily know what those drums sound like after they've been tracked. So you want to have those things there so the mixer can then, if they need to replace something, they actually have those drums, especially if the drums have been recorded well. There's
so true.
Nothing worse than sort of getting into a mix and being like, oh my God, that snare in that one section sounds terrible, because maybe the drummer was just hitting the rim of the snare a bit too much or whatever, or she just crashed a little too hard. So we try to have those options so Alexann can just have those available. And sometimes she might find it. Sorry, you go.
Sometimes I'll use some drums from, I don't know, previous Jeremy session, or he recorded a lot of drums at Waterfront Studios, and which the drums sound amazing. So I've kind of made a few samples for myself. Sometimes I'll add them in, but most of the time I don't. I just like to work with the drums that I have in it.
Yeah.
It has a really great sound.
I think
it's amazing when you have options that sometimes you just don't use them because you're in the new mix. And that's what I find happens with Alexann often. She'll just end up falling into the current mix, and rarely is there a sample having to be used.
I think it's awesome that you'd have, I never even thought of that, but to get the drummer to record kind of hits on their own, I guess, like one shots, and send them over, because you're right, because you never know if one snare's out, at least you can just replace it with this one shot. That's so true. We've got a little, we'll run over a little bit. I know we're going to go over time, but a few more questions I'll grab out. So Alex, have you ever done any mixing for film scoring, or has it just been kind of music and gaming? And thank you for sharing your experience. That's from Atara.
Oh, yeah. So I just mix songs. I mean, when I'm doing a little film scoring, I'll mix as I go when I'm doing that. Before I really got into it, I thought, okay, this will be cool if I learn how to compose for film. Mm-hmm. I'll get to mix it at the end. I'll always have something to mix. But that's just not the way it happens for me, at least.
No, that's fair enough. And then someone said, this is a great webinar, very informative and compelling. So great stuff. And then Atara also asked, what is your experience with mixing live instruments as compared to synths in the studio? Which do you prefer and why? And Alex, you used to have some synths before, I believe, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, I have some Moog.
Yeah.
I have a Sub 37 and I have some stuff. I love both, honestly. I prefer I like a good combo also.
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of, it really is dependent, I guess,
depends.
right?
Yeah.
Bit of a mixture. So this is a good question. Is there any differences for mixing for vinyl records / distribution?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but what I believe that
I mean, I guess
the
that's
bass.
kind of like,
I mean,
for us, it is not, because
I don't know.
With what we do and we work in the box, we don't really focus on really what it's going to do on vinyl, because in the mix situation, we don't really have to. Generally, when we give our mixes to a person who's mastering it, then they will supply us with a vinyl master and then a distribution master. So there's really only two types. We generally don't worry about it. And from my experience with working on analog gear with with Henry, it was basically the same situation. It was like, we just do the mix, we get the song finished, and then it's at mastering stage where they figure out how to get it onto vinyl. And that's our job. My job specifically is to just deliver a song to Alexann. Her job is to just make it sound amazing digitally, essentially. Then whatever platform it goes on, we then hand it over to someone who will master it for that platform.
Oh, that's a
well said, Jeremy.
Yeah, very good point. So the last one, Alex, that I'm going to ask is there parallel compression on the drums? Because the drums sounded great.
Absolutely. I love parallel compression.
Do you mind quickly showing us how you set it up?
Yeah. So from the drum bus, I'm sending pre-fader to my parallel track, which is here.
Yep.
And I just have a bunch of compressors that are hitting pretty hard. I'm happy to solo it if you want to hear on and off for a second.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is just what the parallel sounds like. And there's quite a lot.
Nice and crunchy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Drums without the parallel. All together.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very, very, very thick and full.
Thank
Definitely
you.
adds depth. Awesome. Well, we have gone over time. There was tons of questions, but we've got a bit over. So yeah, I mean, guys, I just want to say a massive thank you. Alex, you did so well. Jeremy, absolutely awesome. And I know it's so early there, so we really do appreciate your time. Alex, once again, thank you so much. I'm so glad you got to share your process.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Yeah, I mean, some of these comments coming in are just amazing, and we really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing the process. And like I said, it's, after the pandemic, everyone's adapted, and to see an artist and engineer opposite sides of the world adapt musically, I think it's an honor to hear that story. So as well as me, the Avid team, and everyone across the world, thank you so much. And to all our audience out there, thank you guys so much. And I'm super excited to host more of these in the future. Stay safe and take care. See you guys.
Thank
you.
Bye.
See you, Jeremy.